Welcome, everybody, to another freshly squeezed episode of the Freedom Mastery podcast. And today I was waiting for this one very long time. As I promised to you, we start a new season with a big oomph. And I want to have only top people in the program, in the podcast. And today I want to introduce you to Shaun Davis. I met Shaun a few years ago. He was on the stage, a phenomenal speaker, and his story is just so inspiring. He's a phenomenal entrepreneur. He is dealing with social housing. He's also a mentor in property world. So without further ado, I'll let Shaun introduce himself because you guys will be blown away by his story. So go ahead, Shaun.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, so Shaun Davis, entrepreneur, property investor, social housing specialist, speaker, and a mentor as well.
That's a long list.
Yeah. So I've been in business now just over 6 years, started the business just over 6 years ago. And yeah, it's been a phenomenal journey. I'd explain it as being an emotional roller coaster, to say the least.
Wow, I think this is something very important to say to people when they want to start. If they think it's easy, it's absolutely not. I even have to say, last week I spoke to my brother, and my brother was never in business. He always worked for somebody else. So he said to me that, oh, you chose this route, so you've got plenty of money and it's so easy for you. And I was like, do you know what? You know nothing about what I have to go through every day in order to be an entrepreneur. So I think
100%.
you would agree with me, right?
Oh, 100%. A lot of people they see the glitz and glam, they see the highlights, they see, the wins, but they don't see that the hard grit, blood, sweat, and tears, determination, and all the stress and all the things you have to do behind the scenes to keep the cogs turning on a daily basis.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you said that you're an entrepreneur for 6 years. So could you tell me a bit more about who was Sean Davies before the 6 year period? Like, what did you do before, and how
Yeah,
it all started in property for you?
yeah. So I used to work for a BMW, which is like obviously everyone knows the brand BMW, as a sales executive. So I used to work in the motor trade. I spent 7 years working in the motor trade, and it was really good actually because it taught me a lot about leadership. It taught me a lot about being in a high pressured sales environment, and it was such a cutthroat and industry. And a lot of people they hated it for that because honestly, if they didn't like you, they would just get rid of you essentially. And that's what it was like, very cutthroat. But I actually enjoyed that because business is the same. Business is like I don't get paid unless I go up there and make things work. So that being that sort of environment and high pressure and having a very low basic and high commission, it actually taught me a lot of skills that I was able to transfer into my business as well.
Amazing. So it sounds like you started from a very challenging industry,
Yeah,
and because it was challenging environment for you, it allowed you to grow quite fast and implement the skills that you acquired in your future ventures, right?
100%. Yeah, so I was on the path and the trajectory to become a leader in that space, and eventually like the plan was obviously to run my own dealership. And then in 2018, I went on a family holiday to Miami. Loved it. It was great. Seeing like these luxurious villas, seeing the yachts, and then seeing the way people live over there. It was just like a different culture. That's why I always say to people, like, go and experience different things, go and travel because it gives you a different perspective. And then I remember coming back to work after that holiday, sitting on my desk and thinking, wow, like, I don't want this anymore. I want a different lifestyle. I want time and location freedom. And unfortunately, a 9 to 5, well, that specific 9 to 5 wasn't offering me time and location freedom. So I was like, what can I do? Then I started looking on YouTube. I started doing a lot of research, and then I discovered rent to rent, and then that's sort of how I began starting my property journey.
Amazing. I think this is where a lot of people start from YouTube, good old YouTube, right? Where you could watch some videos, inspire yourself from other people who are successful in rent to rent, and then it kind of starts ringing the bell. Why not me? If others can do it, then you can do it as well. And that's what I love about rent to rent because it allows people to start with, good expectations, but also they don't have to have a lot to begin with. on top of that, you obviously need to have the right mindset and stay focused. But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
And you already mentioned this developing your leadership skills, and I find yourself like extremely good at like leadership and speaking skills. You've got this natural skill of being a good leader. So how do you rate that in your sort of value ladder, how important it is for you, and how it actually helped you to elevate your business to the next level?
Yeah, appreciate that. I think I'm very tunnel vision and focused on myself. To be, what a lot of people don't realize is for you to be successful and for you to achieve anything, you've got to be selfish. You've got to work on yourself first because you can't fill from an empty, sorry, you can't pour from an empty cup. So you need to make sure your cup is full first, and then you can be of value and valuable to absolutely everyone around you. So I spent a lot of time working on myself, spent a lot of time working on my personal development. I read a lot of books. I absolutely love reading. I listen to a lot of podcasts as well. I'm just very tunnel vision in that sense, and that helps me to become a better leader as well. Also, I'm very observant as well. I'm very curious. I've always been a very curious person, so I'm constantly looking at, how can I be better? How can I be 1% better today? I'm constantly seeking feedback. And I think is a great skill in itself, constantly seeking feedback and looking to better yourself because we're always learning, right? We can always be better. And you never get to a stage where you stop learning. You can always learn something and take something from someone. So I'm always looking and thinking, okay, what can I learn today? What can I take from someone today? And more importantly, how can I get better today as well?
Wow. So you mentioned personal development. I think you're
Yeah,
pretty much like a champion in this, like developing and growing yourself every single day. Because when I first met you back in 2021, your goals were already huge. And I
yeah.
was thinking, wow, one day I want to be like this guy, like in terms of his goals. And now we're talking here, and your goals right now are probably even bigger, which I want to ask you like in a second about that. So could you tell me like what drove? You already told me like what drove you to rent space. How
Yeah.
did it all start for you? What did you do in order to begin your business?
Yeah, so I started again watching YouTube, and then I started to take action. People thought it was crazy. I remember looking and watching, I can't remember what video it was now, but I watched a video. This is back early 2018, and I understood the concept of rent to rent. And honestly, it just really made sense to me. The whole concept of I like the fact that it was low barrier to entry because back then I didn't know about raising finance, didn't know about BRRs and anything like that. So I was like, this is great. I just knew and had the self-confidence that I could do it. And you know what? That is actually half the battle. It's believing in yourself. I'd actually say 60% of the work is just believing you can do it. If you don't truly believe you can make it happen, you're not going to have the work ethic. You're not going to have the resilience that you need to be persistent to actually go out there and actually make it happen and build the habits. So I just understood this concept. It seemed really easy. And honestly, I just took massive action. I was like, okay, cool. Started sending some letters, direct to vendor letters, started to call agents as well. And my very first property was actually a rent to serviced accommodation
Oh,
property. And then I scaled the rent to service accommodation. I think I had about 8 or 9 properties, and then I started to acquire some rent to HMOs as well. But to be honest with you, the serviced accommodation it wasn't for me personally because I was coming out of a sales environment, and even though when I was at BMW selling cars, I was doing really well. And from a corporate world point of view, I was earning decent money. But the thing I didn't like about that industry was the fact that I was on a very low basic and I had high commission. So even though I was consistently making decent money, I always used to think in the back of my mind, I used to think like, what happens next month if no one comes in and buys a car of me? And the serviced accommodation, even though I was doing well, and I know people that are smashing it in service accommodation, it was still giving me that sort of PTSD from selling cars. I was like constantly chasing that next booking. It'd be September, and I'd be looking at December, thinking, I've got no bookings,
yeah.
stressing about December. And it's like I didn't like the fact that I was always had to think about the next booking. I wanted to have a business where it's as, secure as possible. So when I got into rent to HMO, I really preferred that strategy because they was in there for a minimum 6 months, and I could sort of budget and plan and know, okay, cool, for the next 6 months it's going to be all good, and it just gave me more financial security, I'd say.
Mm. Now that is an amazing approach. And to be honest with you, I didn't even realize he started from service accommodation because it seems to me you were always talking about the number of rooms and the social housing aspect of it. Hey there, I hope you're enjoying the episode right now. If you're anything like me, you're definitely not a spectator. You want to know what's next, what's the next move. And the next logical move for you is to send me a text on my private number. It's 075 22 571 026. That's 075 22 571 026. With your permission, my aim will be to understand your plans and goals, and then to identify actions that will take you from where you are right now to your point of destinations. This will truly help you to gain unfair advantage in your rent-to-rent business. Now, let's get back to the video. And yeah, so that's great. And I love your approach because when I speak to my clients, my approach is very similar. I say it's great when you diversify between two strategies, but out of them two, HMO is definitely the strategy that gives you more security and more predictability, where you can really just accommodate, you know exactly what you're getting, you know exactly what's happening next month. Whereas with service accommodation, we kind of cannot predict what's going to happen because it all depends on the occupancy rates, right? So I completely understand. So you mentioned you then started looking into HMOs.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how the rent to HMO side of things actually pan out for you.
Yeah, rent to HMOs, that was going really well, and it was thriving, and I had the business for 18 months, and within 18 months I was able to leave my job. And I think the business at the time, the business was making around, I was probably making about 6 to 7 thousand pounds per month. So it was making decent money, and it was consistently as well.
Yeah.
And then I left my job on the 28th of Feb, 2020, right before COVID, and everything was before that was going great. I had this nice business plan of how I was going to leave my job and blow this business up, and everything was going. I had all my ducks in a row. I felt like I had all my ducks in a row, and I had a lot at the time. I had a lot of students in the property. So in May 2020, 40% of my tenants didn't pay, and it really affected the business like massively. In fact, the business was sinking like a stone. So the first schoolboy error I made was with the service accommodation business. I didn't do the work I needed to build direct bookings. So what I was doing with that business, I was constantly just relying on the online travel platforms, and this is the issue. Now I operate business a lot differently. Even when things are going well, I never get caught up on that. I'm always constantly looking for different ways of how we can add more things, different revenue streams, more streams of leads. And what was happening, because the service accommodation was going decent, I was getting lots of bookings from Booking.com and Airbnb. When COVID happened and they decided to shut the calendars down, guess what? I had no business. I was like, well, what do I do now? I've got all these properties, I've got these 9 apartments, and the rents on them was probably like near enough 10K a month. I'm like, how am I going to afford to pay this? I didn't know anything about direct bookings. So thankfully, I had the rent to HMO, and I thought, okay, cool, that will be okay. But then 40% of my tenants didn't pay there as well because they,
Wow.
obviously all the unions were closed. The students were moving back into their with their families, and the rent to HMO model. Well, just not just rent to HMO, just the HMO model in general. Everyone that was even like if you owned the property, landlords would have been suffering as well because all of a sudden people didn't want to be living and sharing with strangers because you're sharing the living room, you're sharing bathroom facilities,
Yeah.
hygiene, kitchen facilities, and everyone was scared, and no one really understood this virus back then. So people were losing jobs, they were being furloughed, and it was a very weird time. So I'm like, wow, okay, cool. So I've got all these properties, all these apartments. What am I gonna do? Like, I've literally just left my job. I had all this big plan, everything was going well, and already I'm in the trenches, and I'm not meant to be in the trenches at this point so soon. So I had £8,000. That was I had saved, and that was meant to use that to sort of grow the business and just survive for the next few months. And I had to end up using that just to pay towards rent, just to get me through. So I was like, okay, this is not sustainable. I couldn't go back to my job again because everyone was furloughed there as well. So I was like, what do I do now? My back was against the wall, and this was actually the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because sometimes you need your back to be against the wall, because two things happen: you either go out swinging or you sink. You sink, and for me, my mentality is, do you know what? I didn't come this far just to get this far. Like, I need to come out swinging. I need to do something, and that's when the social housing was birthed. So the two things that I always say to people, and then especially new entrepreneurs, the role of an entrepreneur is to, number one, create value, and number two, to solve problems. The more problems you can solve, the more value you can create, is the more money you're going to make, essentially. So I said to myself back then, I was like, okay, cool. Well, this is a me problem here. Like, how can I become more valuable, and how can I solve problems? What problem is there right now that I can solve? Because you must have heard that in a recession, it creates the most amount of millionaires. That's
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's a fact. And the reason why the most millionaires are created is because the people are solving problems. These people there's more problems when there was a recession, and some people either expand or they retract. The people that are expanding, they become millionaires because there's more problems. So at the time, there was so many homeless people. In fact, they were calling the office. Like, the office was people didn't really ring the office that much. It was only when I put an ad. But back then, people were calling the office and was like, about to lose my house. I'm going to be homeless, or because people were living with their partners, and they're all of a sudden they're with a partner 24/7. Divorce and people were splitting up was at a all time high as well. So people were leaving the houses and splitting up with their partners. Like, I'm going to be homeless. I need someone. Can you house me? And so I went back to my senses, my entrepreneurial senses. I'm like, okay, problem, value, what can I do? There must be something I can do. And I said to myself, I just really felt led that I need to help these people. And actually, I was at the point where I was just thinking, okay, I've invested money into these rent-to-rent properties. Surely there's going to be something that I can do, even if I'm not making any money, just something that can wash its face so that I don't lose in the property, because I've obviously invested money and I put initial investments in these properties. So I just knew that obviously this lockdown and COVID is not going to be forever. So, like, if I can just keep my head above water and just I don't want to be going in negative, and I don't want to be actually putting money into this business. I just need to be like, let it cover itself until things get better. So I started calling the councils, and back then I didn't know anything to do with social housing. There was no, I didn't even know it was even a thing. And I called the councils of like, look, I've got all these properties. Properties are basically empty now. People, I'm sure there's a few tenants in each property. I can sort of move people around, put them in the same house. Or if I said to the tenant, you want to just move out and break your contract early, I'm sure they'll say yes. And I was like, what can I do with these properties? Is there a way I can get involved? Is there a way I can just give it to you and you can just put tenants in? And then I was getting pulled for pins and poles, and then the more people I started to speak to, I realised actually there is a need and there is a way of getting into social housing. And I just became obsessed with this idea of getting into social housing. And for anyone that's tried to get into social housing, you will know it's not easy. It's not something where you can say, "Do you know what, I want to start a social housing business." I mean, next week you've got a social housing business, and then the ball's rolling. You're going to have support staff. You need to know what tenant type you want to have. You need to know what's the referral process. How do you get referrals? How do you get paid? What's the invoicing stage? How do you process a claim? All these things, and also the compliance aspect of it as well. And you can't, depending on the level of mental health that of the tenant that you've got, you're going to make sure that that's it all aligns with the other tenants that you've got as well, so that there's no clashes. So there's so many different factors to consider. But I was determined to do it. And then anyway, I managed to get through to the right person, right day. And I always say, like, you create your own luck by being consistent. And I was just consistent, and there's this right place, right time. And this guy from the council, he was like, you know what, we need houses like yesterday. We urgently need houses. And he told me exactly who I need to speak to, what I need to do. I mean, that was it. I just literally made it happen. And I was determined to learn and understand the trade. And yes, when I first started, made loads of mistakes, so many mistakes, because I was trying to figure things out. But I had the willingness to learn. And yeah, fast forward to today, we've got hundreds and hundreds of rooms now. across the West Midlands. We're actually expanding nationwide now, and now by the end of next year, my target is to be at 1,000 rooms.
Wow, that's amazing. So when I first met you from the stage, you were talking about 400 rooms. Now you're talking about 1,000 rooms. So
Yeah.
that's incredible. That's amazing. But I suppose the way you took the business forward, and you, let's face it, you were in quite challenging situation. And at that point, I think a lot of people wouldn't even cope with the pressure. They probably would just back out, but it wasn't you. And that's one thing that can definitely distinguish you from amateur entrepreneur. But if you develop that skill in you, that persistence, then I think a lot of business owners will actually strive because tough times will happen, right? Or there's going to be a mental breakdown that you might have as an entrepreneur. You have to find that strength in yourself in order to push through and not ask yourself, why does this happen to me? But how can I overcome this and what can I do next? I love your approach, how I can resolve the problem for somebody by adding value. And
Yes.
that's really what I love. Um, for anybody who doesn't really know what social housing is, like what how would you classify that? How would you define social housing for somebody?
Yeah, so social housing is actually a good question, but social housing is such a big umbrella, and there's actually lots of different elements of social housing. So it depends what level of social housing you're doing, what type you're doing. But I can explain the strategies that I do. So the two strategies that I'm involved in is the first one is called supported accommodation. And that is basically working with the local authority, and we're essentially housing the homeless. So the aim is to get people from off the streets, from some of them living in their cars, and we get them into our nice, safe, secure houses, and then they go for our tailor-made support program. And the aim is then to work on the skill set, work on their mindset, and then get them back into independent living. So it's like a temporary basis, and you're not meant to be there forever, essentially. And also as well, it's a low level care, so low level care support and supervision that we do. And then you know what, it's very rewarding in the fact that because it's low level care and because it's temporary basis, and most of our tenants are there for 6 to 12 months. And it's really nice to see the progression of them coming, being in a very bad place mentally and physically, and then us working with them, the team work with them, and then they go and get jobs, they've got a new set of skills, they've got a different mindset. And yeah, that's essentially all it is. Now, the other one is temporary accommodation. And that's very similar, but it works a little bit different because there's no care support and supervision involved with that. It's working with the council. They have a big list of people that are waiting for council houses. They need somewhere to live, and there's different ones. You've got domestic violence, you've got homelessness as well. You've got natural disasters such like flooding and fires. And if they're in the council don't have enough properties, and the council need to put they need to put the tenants somewhere. So when the council's in need, they then put them in what we call temporary accommodation, and that's what they've got. That's what I've got as well. And that's the strategy that I'm doing nationwide, because in terms of a strategy um, to scale it nationwide, that is a much better strategy because there's no support and care support and supervision involved in that as well. So yeah, it's been a game changer. And also as well, what's really helped me to grow this business and scale it is the fact that I understood the concept of rent to rent first beforehand. Now, what I've noticed since being in this industry is a lot of people that start social housing, they come from a care background, not a property background. So they really struggle to acquire properties because they don't understand rent to rent. A lot of them don't even know what rent to rent is. So they don't understand, how do you find landlords, how do you close landlords, how do you speak to agents, what are the different strategies, how do you do direct to vendor marketing, all these strategies. So because I came from the professional setting first and serviced accommodation, and I was used to talking to landlords, it was great when I got into this industry. I was able to just offer. And also as well, from a landlord's point of view, it's amazing because I'm able to say, you know what, your rent really is guaranteed. I'm literally guaranteeing your rent because this is actually government backed. And also, not only that, you're able to support an amazing cause and get, your house, because you use it to essentially get people off the streets.
Wow.
And yeah, so that cause and that purpose is big.
Wow. Yeah, there's definitely more than that, than just the reward, like financial reward. We're talking about helping people through their life because people go through challenging moments and you just have a massive impact on them if you think about it. So yeah, it's very inspiring, and I'm sure that people listening this podcast will definitely get a lot of inspiration to really just come from the place of help and genuine support to others rather than just money making machine, which obviously rent to rent can be very profitable, but at the same time there should be something more behind it rather than just this money making
100%.
mechanism, right?
100%. And one more thing I'd say on that as well is regarding the money making thing. Yeah, you're a business and you have to be profitable. You have to obviously make money. That's why you're in business essentially. But with social housing specifically, especially when you're also like high level like supported accommodation or supported living, which is even higher than supported accommodation because you got staff like living sometimes like 24/7. I think with that specific business, you've got to care about people. You've got to be passionate about people because the stress, the stress involved, it's not for the faint-hearted. Honestly, it's very, very stressful, and it comes with a different set of problems daily, and different challenges, and you're gonna be thick-skinned to be in this industry as well. So I don't think I could do it if it were just for the money. I think because I genuinely have a passion and a care, and I'm very big on mindset anyway, and that's all I talk about is a mindset. So that's I love transformation. So that's what keeps me motivated, even more so than the money.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's, I think, the right approach. If we think about resolving problems, adding value, then money will come and money will follow up. But
Exactly.
obviously, it's good that you have a plan. You mentioned also knowing your rent-to-rent strategy, where a lot of people struggle in the industry because they come from the care background. So understanding your strategies, understanding your vehicle, which comes to the part where we can talk a little bit about education because you're also a coach. So I presume that your role is also to make sure that the people who you're coaching, they know what they're doing, because no matter how humble you are, how much you want to help people, without the right strategies, you will struggle to build a sustainable business, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's something that I've been doing with my business partner Luigi for a while now. And I started the High Performance Academy 3 years ago, and I started it in COVID because I was just I felt lonely, to be honest. I came from like a corporate background where, I was in a dealership, you work with lots of people, you move there, and all of a sudden I'm by myself, and it can be quite a lonely world. And I thought to myself, "Do you know what? What can I do to be surrounded with other high performers?" And the word high performer just came in my mind. And then I created the network, and yeah, it's been thriving ever since. And then, initially it was just very generic mindset, general health, general wealth. Then we decided, you know what? I'm involved in property, live and breathe this thing. Let me actually create a course and a program where we actually mentor people to get results in property.
Yeah, that's amazing, because I believe that everybody who wants to get somewhere in rent or any other property investing strategy, of course, you can watch some videos on YouTube, you can get yourself inspired, but typically without the right knowledge and the right support, the chances are that well, best case scenario, will end up with nothing. Like, you won't see the results, but you can also lose a lot if you don't follow the right sort of
Mm.
footprints and there is nobody supporting you and your course. So I really appreciate that, because I come from the same background. In my education, I spent over £40,000, if I remember rightly, for my education on different subjects, mainly property, of course.
Yeah,
And I have to admit, I do not regret any single penny spent on it, and I will keep reinvesting. And I'll always have a mentor, because I believe when you have somebody who's guiding you and coaching you, this is the fastest way to grow and develop.
yeah,
So I'm a big advocate for that, just like you.
yeah.
Awesome. So tell me, like, what's next for you? You mentioned that you're looking to get to 1,000 rooms, but you're also a little bit involved with Luigi. You mentioned Luigi's name, and you're also involved in some BRRs, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah, correct. Yeah. So we're looking to really continue growing the High Performance Academy community. That has been transformational. And actually, that has helped me grow my social housing businesses as well. Because now we've got a community, we've got like almost like an army of people that's just looking at deals, all going the same direction. And what ends up happening is what's not suitable for someone might be suitable for me. What's not suitable for me might be suitable for someone else in the community. And what we
Yep.
find is happening is there's so much collaboration happening. That is really the bigger picture, not so much the mentorship, but actually the collaboration aspect of it, and what can happen from that. So been lots of collaborations that even I've collaborated with, and other mentees have collaborated with each other as well. So it's very powerful. So I want to continue growing that, and then I want to get to 1,000 rooms. We're now becoming a nationwide business as well, growing the temporary accommodation as well, and just making a bigger impact. Like there's still so much scope. I've been in this game now. I've been in business 6 years. Been in the social housing. I think it's about 3.5, 4 years. But it's crazy when I think about what we've done so far. I still feel like we haven't even scratched the surface yet. I still feel like there's so much more we can do. There's so much impact we can make. So I'm more motivated than ever right now. I've got a lot of momentum just to keep going, just to keep moving, and to think bigger as well. I think what's been great now is my going back to leadership is letting go to grow. So one of the things I really struggled with before was being too involved in the business, being way too involved in the operations of the business, and it's an entrepreneurial curse because it's your baby at the end of the day. You built this thing, and you want to make sure that you know things don't go wrong. So what you do, what I did anyway, is I'm trying to, because I don't want anything to go wrong. I'm trying to be involved in every single element of the business, and that's what causes burnout. That's what causes a huge amount of stress, and
Yeah.
it's not actually healthy because you can't be, as much as you think you're great and you think this is my business and I know it all and I've built this from scratch. The reality of it is, if you employ someone to do a specific job, they can do that job better than you. Because the thing is, I've got many hats. I'm getting like 500 calls a day. I've got emails. I'm getting about people calling me every 5 minutes. So the reality is, it's very hard for me to stick at one specific task and get that done competently and properly without getting distracted. Um, Whereas I can employ someone, if that's their job, they'll do a much better job than me. However, what I'm very good at doing now is actually coaching and the leadership and empowering the team to ensure they have the right resources, they have the right motivation to do their job to their best of their ability. And that was a bit of a culture shock for me when I realized actually I'm at that stage now where I'm better, my use is better doing that. And actually my skill set is from a sales background. So focus on your strengths. Like that's what, if you want to grow a business, like my strength has always been sales. So actually, I don't really get involved in the operations because I employ a team to do that, and they do it competently. But what I focus on is I focus on growing the business. So speaking to landlords, acquiring properties. We're now doing the BRR stuff as well. We've been a lot more, purchasing and buying as well, and growing the business, speaking to the council, all the high level tasks. That's what I really focus on.
And that's amazing. So essentially, you eliminated the tasks that somebody else can do instead of you. So that
Yeah,
releases the time and you can focus on things that truly matter to the growth of your business and yourself,
yeah, yeah,
essentially.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Well,
Yeah,
as much as it sounds simple, I can also say it's kind of hard thing to have this shift from somebody who's like, because when you start a business, let's face it, a lot of things you have to do yourself because at the beginning of the business, you'll not be able to afford to hire like a full team of people. So
yeah,
you will end up doing a lot yourself. But the quicker you can get away from this sort of model, and you will be in a position where you can just get somebody who's going to help you with certain things and aspects of your business, and then this is where the real growth comes,
yeah,
right?
exactly, exactly. So true.
Amazing. So with having like team members and with your leadership skills, I think you can probably get to 1,000 rooms like in the next 6 to 12 months easily.
That's man. That's the plan. And I think now, because I'm now going nationwide as well, because I'm based
Yeah.
in Birmingham, and I've got like my gold mine areas in Birmingham that I've been working on. But now I'm trying to just grow nationwide. So actually, when you have the whole country, it's like it becomes much easier. But one of the things I'm doing as well, which will make that goal even easier, is actually looking at acquiring companies and joining it onto mine. So acquire existing rent-to-rent companies, whether they're failing or whether they're thriving, and see if we can acquire them and add it onto ours. And actually, if I can do that, that goal becomes, I can achieve that goal much quicker and even instantly.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
and actually even surpass that goal as well by doing that.
Yeah.
So that's something that again I'm looking into right now as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. So it's good to know. And especially when you focus on this, because when you buy a ready-made rent-to-rent business, you're not just acquiring one property, 5 rooms, 6 rooms, seven. You're talking about multiple properties. So in one go, you're acquiring probably, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 rooms, right?
Yeah.
Depending on how big the portfolio is. So absolutely, you can get 2,000 rooms. I like your thinking. It's very good. It's very smart. It's very clever. And okay, so we know what's next for you. Like, what would you say? To wrap it all up, what would you say was your biggest challenge to date with running and operating a rent-to-rent business, or maybe business in general? What was your greatest
Um,
challenge?
I'd probably say to start off with, before I started, I didn't have no management or leadership skills. Because I've always been in jobs. Like when I was a sales exec, I was just when I was working for BMW, I was as a sales exec, wasn't like a leader as such. So and the business grew very quickly. My business did. So I needed to recruit staff, and I needed to understand how do you manage staff. And it's not just as easy as giving them a job and then saying, well, you crack on with that. You've got to empower them. You've got to constantly nurture them. You've got to ensure that they have the right resources, and also as well, you got to understand that they're not an entrepreneur. So the sort of person I am, I can I'm a sink or swim sort of person. So when I first started the business, I had that mentality where I was saying, "Look, there you are, you crack on, sink or swim." Like, and then I realized actually that's not a great management or leadership skill
Yeah.
uh, because they're not an entrepreneur. So their mindset and their mentality is different to mine. So actually, it's just about having a more better onboarding process, having the patience to sort of lead and nurture and ensure that they are well equipped and they have the time to be able to do that, which is hard because when you've got a business and it's just and you know, especially when you've got like a very small business, a lot of the time funds are very tight. So it's like you get the employee and it's like you need them to start making money for you like instantly, and it doesn't work like that. You need to be able to work with them and over time, once you invest your time into them, then they become an asset to your business from there.
Yes. Yeah.
That's been very challenging for me in terms of understanding how to manage staff. Now, the second level of that was understanding the right time to have a leadership team in place as well. Because becomes a time where you've got all these employees and then everyone's reporting to you and it becomes too much. So then when is the best time to actually start um, getting a leadership team, start having team leaders and managers and all these different departments in place and really ensure that everyone understands what they're doing as well. So again, that was the second the second challenge I had, and then the third one I would say, and the third and last one is like letting go to grow. It's understanding that I've got to let go if I really want to grow this business and focus on the things that are going to move the needle on the business as well, and outsource the rest. Understand what my value is in the business. So I'm not. So when I first started, I used to do whatever I can to save money. So let's say, for instance, let's say, for instance, if the boiler broke, for instance, I would be trying to go, I'm not a gas engineer, but I'd be going trying, I'll just think, oh, I must be able to figure this out. Let me try and go on Google and research it. So I go on YouTube, I go on Google, try and research how to fix this boiler. It's a plumbing issue, it's a leaky pipe. I'll be like, okay, cool, give me 10 minutes, I'll be there. I go there. And I was absolutely diabolical with these things. If something needs painting, I'll be like, you know what, let me go and paint it myself. I'm not a painter. Like, so I had to really understand that, do you know what? Like, if I want to grow, I cannot keep doing things. That's what I mean, let go to grow. I need to hire people, and it's actually cheaper for me to do it because my time to the business is worth a lot more as the CEO of the business. So it's easy for me to pay someone else to do it, pay them their day rate, let them crack on, let them do it, and I'll focus on the high value stuff that's actually going to move the needle in the business.
Yeah. Wow. I think many people after years of entrepreneurship they still struggle with this skill.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly this is a skill. If you can separate yourself from things that somebody else can do, you just want to focus on things that only you can do because typically they will be the high value activities that you need to focus on.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's great. Look, I really appreciate your time. I know your time is very, very precious. One last thing, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, learn how more about your academy or maybe more about how you got on with your social housing in the first place, what's the best way to contact you?
Instagram. So it's at underscore Shaun, that's SHAUN underscore Davis, Davis.
Amazing. So if anybody wants to contact Sean directly, I'm pretty sure Sean will get their message and reply to them swiftly. But without further ado, I really love every single word that you say. I hope that there will be a lot of people getting inspired from your journey. And what would be your final message to somebody who's thinking, maybe on the verge of starting their rent-to-rent business, maybe getting into social housing? What would you say to those people?
Take massive imperfect action. Don't wait to have everything together. Don't wait for the perfect time. That perfect time will never come. Just take it one step at a time and work on the ABC, not the XYZ. Just think to yourself, what three things I need to do right now that's going to get me close to that goal, whether that's education, whether that's watching a YouTube video, whether that's reading a book. Take it one step at a time.
And I completely sign my name just under what you just said because it is what it is. Absolutely. Take your first step. Do not wait for having all the ducks in a row because that time will never come. Once
Yeah,
you start taking action, the ducks will come. They will just put themselves in a row and you'll figure it all out. That's how it works, right? In the entrepreneurial world.
exactly. Exactly.
Amazing. Thank you very much for joining me on today's podcast. I cannot
Absolutely.
wait to meet you again. And I want to see that 1,000 rooms by the end of the year, maybe. Who knows?
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Sean, for spending that time with us. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.